my name is Kaela Blanks. I am the Senior Specialist of Global Diversity and Inclusion at Aramark. And I've been with the organization for a little over a year now, especially specifically in this role, supporting all 10 of our employee resource groups nationwide and globally as well, in all of our local hubs that we have. Outside of Aramark, I am also on the board of Philadelphia SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, and on a local women's organization as well called Professional Women's Roundtable, based out of Philadelphia. So Aramark is a food service provider, majority of our business. We also have a uniform services business. So the work that we do is a service, right? Our business is people at the end of the day. So if we are not providing the support that we need for our employees to be great and feel respected and feel like that they can bring their whole selves to work and truly live in their authentic truth, we're not doing our clients and our customers any service either as well. So it's really important that we took the steps immediately to not only just respond and say, hey, we're fighting racism, right? We are committed to diversity and inclusion. We said, hey, we also need to provide our employees the resources to be anti-racist. We can't just say be anti-racist, but we need to help them on this journey. That's a part of our responsibility. So that was some of the motivation behind us starting the Aramark Ally Network, us providing what we called activating allyship training, which was really awesome and gave people tangible steps about being active, aligned, and aware to be the best ally that they can be, and understanding that it's not an A to B journey, but it really is full of zigzags. It's more like an A to Z with all the 25 million stops in between, for folks to really be true allies in this space and be active allies as well. So our ally, so it's interesting because we call it the Aramark Ally Network, and we're actually a little bit intentional about it not being considered exactly an employee resource group. So our Ally Network, because we view employee resource groups as a specific function of creating a community for folks who are traditionally either marginalized or who need the extra support, or who there's specific diversity and inclusion related strategic initiatives or goals behind to amplify and promote within the organization, whereas allies don't really need the promotion, right? It's an ally network because they're there to help support each other, but then they're a network for our employee resource groups to tap into, to then advance and create a more inclusive and a place of belonging in the workplace here for us. So I would say that over time, so actually our ally network really only started after the death of George Floyd, because it was a result of that, to be frank. So I will say that the biggest change over the past, I guess, has it been 3-4 months, has been the growth of it, to be honest with you. So every time that we have a resource go out, a session go out, people are still asking us, hey, how can I access the content? And it's still growing. And I think that has been the biggest indication that this need is there for it, and people want this. People want to be better. People want to be better allies. I think in the past, we haven't always given space for folks to say, I want to be a better person. And the Aramark Ally Network really allows people to say, hey, I don't know what to do. I have been wanting to be better. I thought it was taboo to say that I wasn't as good of a person as I thought I was. Or the Aramark Ally Network is also shedding light and giving people the awareness to realize that they may not be in the space that they thought they were. So that change piece and the growth there has been really great for the group. Because I will also say it's not even led, it's right now, it's really driven by the Office of Diversity and Inclusion as well. So the biggest differentiator as well for me is that our employee resource groups are grassroots efforts. They're all were created, developed, led, strategized by employees in the organization, where the Aramark Ally Network is intentionally right now supported and led by the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to ensure that it's really having the intended impact, and that employees feel like this is the safe space for them to become better allies. With our employee resource groups, they are very much of a bottom-up approach. And then what has been, I hate the silver lining in all of the BS and the nonsense and everything, the negativity and when George Floyd was murdered and we, Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, all of these other things were coming to surface, we held these support circles called Just Us support circles for our Black and African American associates. It was led through our Leaders and Employees of African Descent Employee Resource Group, so LEAD for short. And that specifically focused on Black and African American associates, or folks who identify as of African descent. They're very specific about being inclusive in that area. And one of the terms that came out of that was called vicarious trauma. And I have now put that in my arsenal of words and terminology because it hit home so much, because we were going through, I think it was hard for a lot of people to put words onto why do those things hit us home so much. So anyway, I digressed into that, but but understanding that vicarious trauma, learning and working through it and experiencing it really has then motivated and pushed leadership to take a more active role, not just in saying, hey, we care about diversity and inclusion, but we see that our employee resource groups are a vehicle and a mode to make sure that we are effective in creating these cultures of belonging and these cultures of inclusion, and where people can speak up and speak out. And I think that is, at the end of the day, what employee resource groups should be. I see them as little activist groups kind of within the organization. They're the ones right at the forefront raising concerns. The lead employee resource group, I talk about those just as support circles. They're always the first people to talk about what's going on. That it really raised the question of how are people feeling isolated right now with those support from those support circles. They talked about the isolation they're feeling by being maybe the only Black person at a client location, which can be very, very isolating if that's not something that you've experienced before, not to see anybody that looks like you. And then also, I'd be bereft or behooved or one of those B words. It would be very, if I didn't acknowledge the work of an activist work of our Pride employee resource group. So our Pride employee resource group recently, in the past couple of years, were the ones that pushed forward transition guidelines within our workplace, to making sure that folks that in our organization who are thinking about transitioning, they have already there's something that they can go to just to get guidance on what does that mean to transition at Aramark. At the end of the day, it includes bathroom guidelines, so that there is no question that you choose the bathroom that you choose to go to as how you choose to identify. And we had to put those policies in place so that they feel protected and that they know that at the end of the day, Aramark as an organization has their back, regardless of where they choose to use the restroom at the end of the day. So I say all of that to say that your ERGs really, really are these catalysts for things, and that's why they're so important when they're grassroots efforts, because they feel like they can own this, and then the empowerment people feel when they can make a change, or they see that they have a stage to do so or the platform to do so, it can really make all the difference for your organization and really put the fire underneath leadership. Not even just the fire, but it can raise those concerns to leadership and then show that there's employees out here that need it as well. And then that's kind of sometimes the light bulb connection that they need to say, we can leverage them more. What else can employee resource groups do? They've already raised all these concerns. They're out here on the ground, making change happen, creating inclusive environments. What else can they do? And then you see it snowball and grow and grow and grow. And then it almost morphs into, it's still bottom up, but also starts to feel like now it's coming from the top too as well, because you have executive sponsors who are like, okay, what can we do? We have an executive diversity council saying, okay, what can the ERGs do? How can we leverage them more? I have leaders from functional units, so like, IT or accounting or finance department saying, hey, can we pull in the employee resource groups? We want them on our team meeting to talk about this, that, and the third. It's not always just the voice of D&I, but now we have the voice of our employees specifically speaking as well, which is great. Yeah, our employee resource groups have partnered with groups like culinary, or like specifically for us, right? So it's food service. They've partnered with our culinary team to make sure that our menus are properly representative, right? So we're actually, October, so right, we're wrapping up Hispanic Heritage Month, and my go-to example for this month has been that, your typical Taco Tuesday with the gringo taco is not actually authentic Latin. The hard shell taco with like maybe some ground beef and some cheese, shredded cheese, is not authentically Latin fare, just FYI. So our culinary team tapped into our employee resource group, or actually I think our employee resource group, Impacto, which is the one that's focused on Hispanic and Latinx employees, specifically actually went to the culinary team and was like, hey, we need some more inclusive menus here. We need menus that are actually authentically Latin. If we're going to have a Latin fare, we need some authentic menu options here. And it's been a hit. You can't imagine how many clients and customers have said, this menu is amazing. They see it. It's so cool when you can see people resonate with food and menus, and how much when you make them authentic to people's culture and their background, it resonates with them so much more, and it makes them, it's like you're speaking to them a little bit. I'm a foodie myself, so anytime I see food and it feels like it's coming from a loving place, and it feels like it's being respectful of me as a person, because our food does speak a lot about cultures just in general, it can really have an impact. So I'm really proud of the work that our employee resource groups have done in that space, because that's how we take it, and that's how we take diversity inclusion outside of Aramark, and move it from just the workplace into the marketplace, and make it an impact and show clients and customers that, hey, diversity inclusion can be just more than having representation in leadership. How do we continue to amplify the voices of our diverse talent, and specifically within our culinary sphere? Because if historically culinarians tend to be a very male-dominated field, and white male-dominated, and with fairs and food, if you think about our traditional food, especially in America or some of these other ones, French cuisine is really highlighted, right? That's like fancy, right? Or some traditional European fare might be the standard of what you think about, but our chef culinary spotlights are going to partner with each ERG to start to share those chef stories, share a unique recipe to them, and the unique story that comes behind those. So it's a really awesome new initiative that's coming down the pike soon that we'll hopefully be able to share in the next couple months or so. We should have a story or two to share. So my biggest piece of advice to organizations who are trying to leverage employee resource groups in this fight against injustice and racism and inequalities is to first and foremost listen to them. You'd be surprised to hear what comes from the authentic stories of people. When you ask them, hey, just give them that open forum, that open space to just say, hey, I'm here to listen to you, and I'm here to hear what's going. I'm here to open up that space and say that I'm here for you. I'm here to listen to what you have to say. without fears of repercussion, because sometimes I think we forget that working in corporate or working in the higher levels of leadership, you may think your organization is one way, or you may feel that you have an inclusive organization, or that racism may not exist in your organization. But people's experiences are influenced by the people that they interact with. So your office may be good, your location may be great, but that one manager out in the remote small area where that one employee only gets to interact with, that'll shape their entire view. So really leverage your employee resource groups and empower them to speak up, to share their voices, share their experiences, share their true authentic experiences as well. I don't think we always give folks the space to feel that they can just speak authentically without fear of repercussion. So then make sure that you are taking action on that, right? You're not making those empty promises. Once you hear them, show that you're willing to make change happen, because that change is integral and that change is key for folks to feel that they did get, that they were heard, right, at the end of the day. Because if they feel like it's falling on deaf ears, then you saying you heard them can feel very, very fake, right? It can feel inauthentic at that point in time. So it's not until you take those steps from what you heard, take those notes as you, probably, of course, you don't want to share those notes more broadly if they're really feeling this is a confidential space. But at the end of the day, you need to take those steps to make sure that you are, if things do come out of it, that you're taking steps to create those solutions and to create more inclusive spaces, more places of belonging, and that it's holistic too as well, and not just in pockets.